Hi, I'm Anand Rao. I'm a director at Galvantrix Private Limited in Singapore. I want to talk to you about something very interesting which most companies need on a daily basis. Before that, do you remember a company called Enron? Now, Enron was a leader in the energy segment, but about 2 decades ago, it suddenly collapsed. And the reason for the collapse was not because it was poorly run. Of course, there were a few other issues with integrity and so on, but it was largely because a small known entity based out of the UK called Enron Trading entered into a large number of derivative types of contracts run by a 29-year-old CEO. Of course, there was no visibility, no oversight, and there was no control. So as a result, when the time came for the contracts to be called, the company collapsed completely. Now, contracts affect every company. The bigger the company, the more important are contracts. Now, typically, how do people store contracts? How do companies store contracts? First, they have it in manual paper forms. So whenever a contract has to be signed by the sales or procurement departments, people run around with the physical documents. Maybe there are multiple versions of those documents, and they get the signatures. And finally, once they're signed, they're stored away in some storage cabinets. The second way in which people manage contracts is to just outsource them to some legal company. That will work, and that does work when the contract needs to be signed. But after that, it just goes and gets stored away somewhere and can be retrieved, but definitely not on demand. And the third way, which I think all of us are most comfortable with, is to store the data in Excel files. Now, these are typically stored in Excel files of individual departments who then take printouts, get the signatures, and again store them away in Words. So the net result is that when it comes to looking at what kind of contracts are expiring, when you want to know who the contracts are with, when you want to know what type of contracts they were, what were the conditions, and so on, especially from the perspective of analysis, there is virtually no visibility. Now, in the next few set of articles, I'm going to talk about how Galvantrix helps our customers to manage different types of contracts using a state-of-the-art product. So please stay tuned. Thank you.